A completely black frame with no visible content.
Well, hello everyone, and good afternoon, and welcome to the Tent of Many Voices. The Tent of Many Voices is part of the Core Discovery 2 Traveling Lewis and Clark exhibit. It's a National Park Service exhibit that's been on the road since 2003 and will continue to be on the road through 2006, the 4 years of the Lewis and Clark Expedition Bicentennial. And what we do here in the Tent of Many Voices is we bring in a wide variety of presenters and speakers to share with us a wide variety of perspectives, many voices. And we're pleased today to have with us Alan Pinkham, who's going to talk about the culture and history of the Nez Perce. So please give him a warm welcome to the Tent of Many Voices.
A person wearing a gray uniform shirt and a tan ranger-style hat holds a microphone while standing on a stage with wooden paneling and decorative elements in the background.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? Okay, good. My English name is Alan Pinkham, of course, and but a little more. Okay. All right. Maybe I'll just have to talk a little louder. Okay. Thanks. My English name is Alan Pinkham, but my Nez Perce name is Pakathaikatin. Pakathaikatin. And of course, I got that from my father. And one of the reasons we ended up with English names is because when the Dawes Act came to our reservation in 1893, we were told by the agent and the Presbyterians and the U.S. Army we had to have English names. So that's why I ended up having a Pinkham, a good English name for an Indian. So that's why I have the name, and my family is Pinkham, but then actually I'm a descendant of Red Bear, Hahats il Pilb, who met Lewis and Clark in 1805.
A person wearing glasses, a white shirt, and a dark vest stands at a poster presentation board, pointing to text on the left panel while holding a device in their other hand.
And along the Lewis and Clark Trail, right here where it says Chopinish and Kuski River, that's my territory, my homeland. And then on this map, it's just a little bit south and east of Lewiston, Idaho. But the Nez Perces traveled to Montana, North Dakota, Wyoming, even to the Great Lakes, way before Lewis and Clark came out here. So we knew the country. We knew how to travel way before Lewis and Clark gets to our country and even to Montana. Now the reason I can say
Several people sit facing a wall-mounted display with multiple screens showing maps and green landscape imagery. The person in the center wears a light blue shirt and white cap.
this, there's a little story that we would listen to when we were young people. And it's a little story that's connected with this star formation. Is probably a little bit different than what you've heard or learned in your school days. This is the story of 2 grizzly bears, 5 wolf brothers, and 1 little dog. And I'll tell you how that is. Old Wolf, he was sitting down and he was looking up. And Coyote come along and he says, ask Old Wolf, what are you looking at? He says, oh, I'm looking at two of them up there. Don't you see them? So Coyote, he looks up and he sees two grizzly bears. And in the meantime, four of Old Wolf's younger brothers come along and ask the same question. What are you looking at? He says, oh, we're looking at the grizzly bears up there. Don't you see them? And Old Wolf said, I sure wish I could go up and see these two grizzly bears. So Coyote, since Old Wolf persisted, he said, I'll show you how to go up there and see these two grizzly bears. So Coyote, he makes 5 bundles of arrows and a bow. He shoots the first arrow up and it stays up there. He shoots a second and it sticks to the first arrow, and a second and third and fourth, all the way down to the ground. And Coyote tells Old Wolf, now you can go up there and see the two grizzly bears. But the next oldest wolf says, well, I want to go up first with my next 2 younger brothers to see these two grizzly bears. And Old Wolf agrees. He says, okay, you go up with your younger brothers and see these two grizzly bears. So the next oldest wolf and his 2 brothers go up the arrowway and they sit down and they look across to the 2 grizzly bears. And then Old Wolf says, well, I want to go up next, and I want to take my youngest brother and my little dog with me. So they go up and they sit down and look across to the 2 grizzly bears. And Coyote says, when the human beings come, they will look up there and they will see 2 grizzly bears, 5 wolf brothers.
A person wearing sunglasses, a white shirt, and a beaded vest speaks at a microphone on a stage. Behind them is signage that reads U.S. Department, and what appears to be Depart repeated. A water bottle sits on the table nearby.
And 1 little dog. Can you identify who they are? Here's first grizzly bear, second grizzly bear, the next oldest wolf brother and his younger brother and his younger brother, and then this is the old wolf with his little dog right here, and this is the youngest wolf brother right there. Some people call it the Big Dipper. We call it 2 grizzly bears, 5 wolf brothers, and 1 little dog. But what does that tell you? Anybody? North Star, good. Okay, here's the North Star right here. Okay, if you know and hear this story as a young person, you know a direction. North. So as you grow older, when you're out here in the plains to the east of us, and all you see is one horizon, one level, what do you have to find? The North Star. Or if you're in a big lake somewhere, where you see nothing but a horizon, you need to know where the North Star is. East and west is easy to figure out because that's where the sun comes up and it goes over and sets in the west. So now you know 4 directions. So, but how can you travel? Okay, now what we used to do, we would describe travel time as 1/2 day before noon, or 1/2 day afternoon to evening, and then maybe even divide the half day up into 1/4. We didn't have hours or minutes or seconds, but we had days, a fraction of a day's travel, and then any shorter distance, all we had to do is pace or walk steps, and we could measure. So that's how we travel. We measured travel time by fraction of a day and days, and maybe even 28 to 30 days of the moon phase, 1 travel of a moon. Now, how far do you think we could go in one moon's travel? Well, let's kind of figure it this way. Say on an average, if you traveled by horse, foot, or canoe, you could probably average about 20 miles a day. You traveled 100 days or 3 moons, you're 2,000 miles away.
A person wearing sunglasses, a white shirt, and a beaded vest with fringe sits indoors, gesturing with both hands while speaking. Behind them is a backdrop with partial text reading US for and Depart Me, suggesting an official setting.
So that's what we did. So from Idaho, where we are now, we would travel to the red pipestone quarries in the state or around the Great Lakes area, which is about 100 days travel. So we travel. And we have many traveling stories in tribal history. There's one story that we traveled so far south where it was hot all year long. And in that country, we found a little animal. We called that little animal Coyote. Coyote. And what that means is imitator. Imitator. And what that little monkey is what we found. And we called that little animal, because he did everything that we did or tried to act like us, we called him Coyote, imitator. So that's how far south we went. And we also traveled so far south that we found another kind of human being. Once we found out that they were human beings. Now, if you really look at it in a practical sense, even in 1805, when we seen Lewis and Clark, we knew Lewis and Clark was coming. But then even 300 years prior to that, 1492 or 1500 or 1520, 1530, how could another kind of strange person or human being live 3,000 or 2,600 miles east of us without us knowing about it? Now, this wasn't isolation. Just because there was a Rocky Mountain here and hundreds of miles of plains, that was no obstacle to us. So we heard about this creature. And there's prophecies of the coming of these new kinds of people. One day, there will be a white-faced creature behind a white-faced animal about the size of a deer that will come through Lapwai Valley, our homeland. The white-faced creature was what we had to decide whether it was a human being or not. Because when we heard about that, even before Lewis and Clark, this strange creature had eyes like fish, spoke a language we never heard before. Some of them had their faces on upside down, and they smelled. And they will bring good things and bad things to us. This is what this new creature will do.
A person wearing sunglasses, a white shirt, and a beaded vest speaks at a microphone on a stage. Behind them is a banner reading U.S. Department and Depart. They gesture with both hands while speaking.
So we had a little debate about, well, gee, are these human beings or not? Because they certainly don't look like us. They don't smell like us either. So what are they? Maybe they're mixed with some other kind of animal. But once we found out that they had human traits, we finally decided they must be human beings. Now the description was eyes like fish, that's gray, blue, green eyes, face upside down, is mustache and beard and bald on top. You know who you are. And so this was the predictions that we had made, that they will come into our country. But then one of the traits that these new kinds of human beings would have is that they would be very inquisitive, inventive, aggressive, arrogant kinds of people. So we had to be a little cautious. And so when we heard about these people, we went to see them. We traveled 2,000 miles to see them. Or we went to the southwest to see them, near the country of the monkey. So this isn't any great surprise to us when Lewis and Clark comes wandering up the Missouri River and gets into the Selway and the Lochsaw River and end up on Camas Prairie in Idaho. We were just a little surprised that they would show up when the passes were starting to get snowed in. We thought it was kind of odd that they'd be traveling and taking a chance to get snowed in on the passes. But they showed up. And it was predicted, of course. And so that occurred. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Now, there's another little story that maybe you youngsters would be interested about. You probably heard about, well, a cow jumped over a moon. The moon is full of cheese, or there's a man in the moon. To us, none of this happened. There's a frog in the moon. He's up there. Now the story is, Moon, he would go through the sky at night. Every night he'd go through the sky. And one night he sees a frog sitting down there near the water, and he looks down and asks Frog, well, what good are you? He says, all you do is just sit there. Then Frog looks up at Moon and says, well, what good are you? You just go through the sky.
A person wearing sunglasses, a white shirt, and a beaded vest speaks into a microphone with gesturing hands. Behind them is a stage backdrop with partial text reading Department and U.S. Pure, suggesting an official setting.
And so they argued, but then the Moon went on. Next night, the same thing, they argued again. Moon would say, well, what good are you? All you do is sit down there and talk. You don't do anything. And Frog would say, well, what good are you? The sun, he gives us warmth and, makes things grow, and you just go through the sky and don't give light like the sun. And so they would argue. And the third night, Frog, he got so mad when they were arguing about who was the best one. Frog says, I'm going to jump in your eye. So Frog, he jumps and he lands in the Moon's eye, and that's where he is today. And then when Coyote looks up, he says, when the human beings come, they will look up and they'll see the frog in the moon. Because he lost his temper, that's where he ended up. And so that little story tells you, so you don't get in an argument, you may end up where you may not supposed to be. So keep that in mind. Okay, here is it would be the right hind foot of Frog, right here. And right here, this is his rear end. And over on this side is his other foot, and the rest of his body over here. So that's Frog in the moon. So next time you see the full moon, look for him, because that's where he is. So those are the kinds of stories that we have. There's more, of course. But I don't have enough time to tell you any more about those kinds of stories. But I will tell you this. Among the Nez Perce and many other tribal people, there's what we call the maker of all things. And he is called Hanyawa. He is a creator. He makes everything you see, everything that's here. And so that's the beginning of the world. He creates the world. But he also creates many other things. He creates large animal people, what we know as large animal people. The four-legged and the flying and the insects and fish, birds. But then the Creator calls all the animal people together. And there's a landmark along the Clearwater River that depicts this. And he tells all the animal people there's going to be a great change. Some of you may not survive. Some of you will. But this great change is going to come, and you'll be smaller animal people. So now I want you all to come out and describe what you want to look like, how you want to be.
A person wearing sunglasses, a white shirt, and a beaded vest stands at a microphone on a stage with partial text visible reading US for and Depart Me in the background. They gesture while speaking.
How you want to live and how you can help the human beings when they come. So they all came out and they sat in a council. And there's the rock formations down the draw from that ridge line, and some of it looks kind of rounded and haystack looking. You can't see any form. But the others are sitting up on a ridge line like large animals sitting down, like the back of a mammoth or a dinosaur or something like that. And they're very tall. They're about 15 to 20 feet high. And those represents the large animal people. And the rounded stones going up the draw to that area are the ones that never made the meeting. They were late. So don't be late for meetings. You'll just become a stone, unrecognizable. So this great council was called. And the Creator says, now you come out and demonstrate how you want to be, and I'll declare you qualified. So all the animals, the birds, and the insects had to do this, and the fish. And they would say, like I'll give you an example, like the deer. The first deer, he comes out and says, I want to have horns that come up and branch out like this, and I want a short black tail, and then the human beings can use my horns for tools and my flesh for food, but I won't be easy to capture. And so that animal came out and he demonstrated how he wanted to live, and he was called mule deer, what we now call mule deer. He wanted big ears, and that's what he got. So the second deer, he comes out and says, well, I don't like the horns of the first deer. I want horns that come up and go like this. And I want a big, long white tail that goes like this when I run. And the human beings can use my flesh and my hide for clothing, and that's what I'll contribute, but I'm not going to be easy to catch. So that he's known as whitetail. Another deer comes out, and he says, I like the horns of the first deer that come up and branch out like this. But I don't want that funny-looking little tail. I want something a little longer and black on one side. And the human beings can use my flesh and hide for clothing, and my brains to soften the hide to make it white. So that deer was called black-tailed deer. So I could go through this and describe all the animals, the elk, the moose, grizzly bear, eagle. They all described themselves and how they wanted to be and how they could help the human beings. And even
a person wearing sunglasses, a white shirt, and a beaded vest speaks at a microphone on a stage. Behind them is signage that reads U.S. Department and partial text visible on the backdrop.
Even the insects. Spider, he came out. And this is what I'll do. I'll weave this web to catch my food. But the human beings won't know how I do this to catch my food. And I will show them what wisdom is, because they cannot understand something. They have to accept it the way it is and how it is. And we will call that wisdom. Acceptance of something that you don't understand, but is there before you. So even insects were contributing to the existence of the human being. So even insects, the birds, the eagle said, well, I'll fly way up there. They can use my feathers for their symbols, and when they talk to me, I'll give their message to the Creator. That's what I will do. So that was done. Eagle became qualified. So all the animals, insects, birds, and even the fish, the salmon said, I will come to the streams every year at the same time of year, but you'll have to catch me for food. So everybody contributed something, and they got a name. They were qualified. And right near the end of this story and this great council of all the animal people, Coyote, he just barely makes the meeting. He's just in time. He comes in, and he's the last one. He says, well, I want to be eagle. He says, no, that name's already taken. You're too late. Well, I want to be grizzly bear. No, that name's already taken. And so he really felt bad. He says, well, what can I be? And when he tried to demonstrate how he wanted to be, he couldn't even talk straight. You ever listen to coyotes at night? Yip, 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 yip. You don't know what they're talking about. Because he couldn't talk straight. So finally the Creator took pity on him. He says, I'll give you special powers. I'll give you the name Itziaya, which means coyote. He says, you'll have all the traits of the human beings when the human beings come. You'll be just like them. You'll have the emotions. You'll steal. Maybe be a thief. Maybe you'll be a good person. But you'll have all the traits of the human beings. But I'll give you a special power. If somebody kills you, I'll give you the power to come alive again. And I'll give you the power to change things also. So Coyote, he was happy. This is great. He's got special powers.
A person wearing sunglasses, a white shirt, and a beaded vest speaks at a microphone on a stage. Behind them is a backdrop with partial text reading U.S. and Department along with what appears to be a logo or emblem.
So when the meeting was over, he traveled the world. And this is where all our Coyote stories come from the Nez Perce. And this is how Coyote got his power, to be what he is. But he's got all the faults and traits of the human beings. And he does get himself killed every now and then. So they were just about ready to break up the meeting. Grizzly Bear says, well, what are we going to do about day and night? I want 6 months day and 6 months night. That's what I want. Little Chipmunk, he says, no, no, no. You're just lazy. We should have 1 day, 1 night. That's all we need. And so Grizzly Bear and Chipmunk, they start arguing. Grizzly Bear says, 6 months day, 6 months night, that's what we want. That's the best thing we can have. Little Chipmunk, his tail going back and forth. He says, no, 1 day, 1 night, 1 day, 1 night. And he says, you're just lazy. So Creator says, you go over there and sit down and you argue. Whoever wins the argument, that's what we will have when this great change comes. So Grizzly Bear and Chipmunk, they sit down, they start arguing. Grizzly Bear arguing 6 days, 6 months night, 6 months days. Chipmunk says, no, 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 one day, 1 night, 1 day, 1 night. They were arguing, and Grizzly Bear got sleepy. He'd start arguing, says, we want 6 months day, 6 months night, and he'd lean over and he'd just about go to sleep, and he'd wake up and he'd start arguing again. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. He fell over and he went to sleep. And little Chipmunk, he says, I won, I won. We'll have 1 day, 1 night now. And the Creator agrees, yes, we'll have 1 day and 1 night. So that's how we have 1 day and 1 night now. And so Grizzly Bear, he sits up and he wakes up and he looks around. He says, what happened? What happened? He says, oh, you lost the argument. We got 1 day, 1 night now. And Grizzly Bear looks around and he says, where's that little Chipmunk? I'm going to get him. Little Chipmunk looks at him and says, oh, he's going to come after me. So he starts running. Grizzly Bear right behind him. He wants to catch that Chipmunk. He reaches out and scrapes the back of Chipmunk. And that's why Chipmunk has those stripes on his back now, because he won the argument. And he got 1 day and 1 night. So you have to be a little persistent sometimes to get what you want. So those are the kind of stories that come about. Now we got all kinds of coyote stories that goes on and on as well. And
a person wearing sunglasses, a white shirt, and a beaded vest speaks at a podium indoors. Behind them is signage that reads U.S. Department and what appears to be Depart on a dark background. A water bottle sits nearby.
How much time we got left here? Okay. Maybe I could open it up for questions. Anybody have any questions? He wants a story about a coyote.
Anybody have any questions? It looks like we got a question over here. For questions, what I'm going to do is bring the microphone around so everybody can hear you. And if you could come to the center aisle with your questions, that'd be helpful as well.
I'll see if I can get a story in here just a second.
What was your Indian name again?
What is my Indian name? Pakat Hai Ketin. Pakat Hai Ketin. Pakat means 5. Hai Ketin means rays of light. Now, if you ever observe like cloudy days and there's rays of light coming through the clouds and comes down and touches the earth, I'm the 5 rays that come down through the clouds and touch the earth. That's my name. Yes?
Did you ever come up with any stories about how something came to be, from your point of view?
How things came to be? Maybe I'll tell this story. Coyote, when he traveled the world, his brother Fox tells him, there's a monster up there on the Clearwater. They're devouring all the animal people. He's sucking them in and he's devouring them. And this is called one of our creation stories. And so Coyote, he prepares himself. He gets 5 flint knives and he gets soot and pitch. And he goes up on a Camas Prairie and he goes over towards Grangeville, where Grangeville now is. And his brother Fox is with him, of course. And then Coyote yells over to where the monster is. And he says, you can't devour me like you did the other animal people. And he kept hollering at the monster. Pretty soon the monster, he raises his head above the level of the prairie. And he looks across to Coyote. He says, who is this hollering at me? He says, I'm going to suck you in like I did the other people. So Coyote says, you go ahead. So monster, he sucks in his breath, and Coyote had tied himself to the mountain with his rope, and he'd go to the end of the rope and he'd stop before he got into the monster's mouth. And they did that 3 times. The 3rd time he reaches behind him and cuts the rope and he goes into the monster's mouth. And he's inside, he's walking around. It's kind of dark in there. And so he strikes a fire so he can see. And he walks along, you see the bones laying there where animal people have died. And there's still some alive,
A person wearing sunglasses, a white shirt, and a beaded vest speaks at a microphone on a stage. Behind them is signage that reads U.S. Department and partial text visible on the backdrop.
Some are alive yet and some are pretty weak. So he goes among those people and he comes near a rattlesnake. Rattlesnake strikes at him. He says, what are you doing? I come here to rescue you and now you're striking at me. I come here to save you. So he steps on Rattlesnake's head. And so that's why Rattlesnake has flat heads now. And he walks further down. And Grizzly Bear roars at him. Well, what are you roaring at me for? I come here to save you people. And Grizzly Bear roars again, so Coyote pushes his nose, and that's why grizzly bears have flat noses now. So he says, well, watch me and do what I say. I'm going to kill this monster. I'm going to cut the heart loose. But when all the monster is dying in the last breath, all the holes of this body is going to open up and you run out. And you kick the bones of all the dead people in here too. So the people all go to the holes. The mouth, the nose, the ears, and even that hole underneath the tail. They all wait at these holes. And Coyote gets his knife, he cuts away, breaks a knife, gets another knife. He's down to his last knife. And the last piece of flesh is that hanging on the heart. And he reaches up and he tells the people, now get ready. So he cuts the last piece of flesh and the heart falls. And the holes open up with the last breath. All the animal people run out and carry the remains of the other ones with them. And they all go out. And the last one out is Muskrat. He's running out the hole underneath the tail. And just as he goes out, that hole closes on his tail, and that's why Muskrat doesn't have any hair on his tail. He's the last one out. So all the animal people then remains, and Coyote says, now you're all alive. So all the animal people are come alive, and they go around about their way. And then Coyote says, no, Fox asks Coyote, what are you going to do now? This wonderful place here, this beautiful Clearwater Valley should have human beings here. And this whole land should be occupied by human beings. And this is an island. We knew this was an island because there's water in every direction you went. So Coyote says, well, I'll make human beings. So he cuts the monster up in pieces. And he'd throw a part in a direction, another part in another direction. And, you know, this is the way he distributed. And when those...
A person wearing sunglasses, a white shirt, and a beaded vest speaks at a microphone on a stage. Behind them is a banner reading U.S. Department and Department. A water bottle sits nearby on the table.
Pieces of this monster struck the ground. They became Cheyenne, Sioux, Shoshone, Duwamish, you know, coastal people, Pueblo people. So he populated this continent. And he was just about done, and Fox says, well, what are you going to do about people living right here? There should be people right here. And he had thrown most of the body parts out. So Coyote says, well, bring me some water. So Fox, he goes up and brings some water back from the Clearwater. And he washes his hands. And he sprinkles the blood and the water on the ground, and when the blood and water strikes the earth, up pop the Nipu people, Nez Perce people. So that's how we're created by Coyote. We are the human beings of the blood and the water and the earth. That's how we're made. And that's how we're created. So that's one little Coyote story. It's our creation story. That's how we were made.
So where did you originate then?
Right there, it's there's a rock. It's a heart formation. It's about 35, 40 feet high. It's right at Cami, Idaho. And that's our center of our creation. And that stone is there. So if you ever get to Cami, Idaho, I think Core 2 will be over there in August, I believe. And if you ever get over there, look for that rock, because it's very prominent. You can look like a heart standing on a base, and then to the point is up. So that's how we're created. Then, of course, other Coyote stories come from that, too. Are we... One more question?
We got time for maybe one or two more questions.
How old are you?
How old am I? Uh-oh. This is getting personal now. Uh-oh. Well, in the old days, they used to count age by winter time. I have seen 67 winters. Of course, I was born in January, so I've already seen the first winter. So yes, I'm 67.
Can you speak not Chinese, but Indian?
Didn't quite hear it.
Wants to know if she can speak your native language. If she can speak the Nez Perce language.
Oh. Knox, Lapit, Metat, Pilept, Wenat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Knox, Lapit, Metat, Pilept, Pakat. Knox is 1. Knox, Lapit is 2.
A person wearing sunglasses, a white shirt, and a beaded vest speaks at a microphone on a stage. Behind them is signage that reads U.S. Department and Depart. A water bottle sits on the table beside them.
Knox, Lapit, Metat, Pilept, Pakat, Wenat. Wenox, Putum, Puix, Putum, all the way to 10.
We have another question here.
Where were you born?
I was born in Lapway, Idaho, in my grandmother's house. My mother wanted to get me to the hospital before I was born, but we only made it to grandmother's house, so I was born there. I was delivered by my grandmother.
One more question.
How did you get your Indian name?
How did I get my Indian name? My father took me to a gathering of the Nez Perce community. And this would have been probably about 1942 or 43, somewhere around there. And he got me by the hand and led me. I don't remember any of this. I was probably only about 3 or 4 years old. He took me out and he said, "This is the name of this young person here. This is the name I'm going to give him. He is my 5th son. So I will call him Pachet Hayikatin. Because he is my 5th son, Pachet means 5, and rays of light. That was my name. That's how I got it." Thank you.
Well, thank you, Alan. Thank you for sharing your stories with us. And just to